Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. This is Gopinath Das starting Srimad Bhagavatam class. I was planning to speak in English this morning. We have so many Finnish classes being lately, so for a change, I thought of speaking in English. So let's start with Jai Radha Madhava. Shiva Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. So welcome everyone who came during the bhajan. I was planning to speak in English this morning, just to let you know. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayat Namastaprayasva Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, and chapter is 25. What was the name of the chapter? It's description about Anantadev. The glories of Lord Ananta. And chapter today, text today is 7 and 8. There's no purport in the 7th verse, so I'll just read it through and then we concentrate on verse 8. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, to the 7th verse. Shukadev Goswami continued, the demigods, the demons, the uragas, serpentine demigods, the siddhas, the gandharvas, the vidyadharas, and many highly elevated sages constantly offer prayers to the Lord because he is intoxicated. The Lord looks bewildered, and his eyes, appearing like flowers in full bloom, move to and fro. He pleases his personal associates, the heads of the demigods, by the sweet vibration emanating from his mouth. Dressed in bluish garments and wearing a single earring, he holds a plough on his back with his two beautiful and well-constructed hands. Appearing as white as the heavenly king Indra, he wears a golden belt around his waist and a Vaijayanti garland of ever-fresh tulsi blossoms around his neck. Bees intoxicated by the honey-like fragrance of the tulsi flowers hum very sweetly around the garland, which thus becomes more and more beautiful. In this way, the Lord enjoys his very magnanimous pastimes. And text 8, this is also in what it's called prose form, no particular meter here. Ya esa evam anusruto dhyayamano mumukshunam anadikala karma vasana krathitam avidyamayam hridaya kranthim sattvarajastamo antarhridayam kata ashu nirbhinati tasyanubhavan bhagavan Swayambhuvo Narada Sahat Tumburuna Sabhayam Brahmana Samshilokayam Asa. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If persons who are very serious about being liberated from material life hear the glories of Anantadev from the mouth of a spiritual master in the chain of disciplic succession, And if they always meditate upon Sankarshan, the Lord enters the cores of their hearts, vanquishes all the dirty contamination of the material modes of nature, and cuts to pieces the heart knot within the hard knot within the heart, which has been tied tightly since time immemorial by the desire to dominate material nature through fruitive activities. Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, always glorifies Anantadev in his father's assembly. There he sings blissful verses of his own composition, accompanied by his stringed instrument or a celestial singer known as tumburu, accompanied by his stringed instrument or a celestial singer known as tumburu. Purport. None of these descriptions of Lord Anantadeva are imaginary. They are all transcendently blissful and full of actual knowledge. However, unless one hears them directly from a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession, one cannot understand them. This knowledge is delivered to Narada by Lord Brahma, the great saint Narada, along with his companion Tumburu. Uh, okay. And the great Saint Narada, along with his companion Tumburu, distributes it all over the universe. Sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Uttama Shloka, one who is praised by beautiful poetry. Narada composes various poems to glorify Lord Ananta, and therefore the word Samshlokayam Asa, praised by selected poetry, is used in this verse. The Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya belong to the disciplic succession stemming from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is the spiritualized master of Narada. Narada is the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, all devotees in the Gaudiya Sampradaya accept the activities of Lord Ananta related in Srimad Bhagavatam as authentic, and they are thus benefited by going back home, back to Godhead. The the contamination in the heart of conditioned soul is like a huge accumulation of garbage created by the three modes of material nature, especially the modes of rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. This contamination becomes manifest in the form of lusty desires and greed for material possessions. As confirmed herein, unless one receives transcendental knowledge in disciplic succession, there is no question of his becoming purified of this contamination. Om Agnatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Girim Yatkripatam Maham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So in the verse number 7, there was actually, if somebody could notice, there was actually description of Balaram, like mentioned in my previous class. This Anantadeva and Sankarasan, they refer to Lord Balaram. They are expansions of Lord Balaram. In the 7th verse, it was described how this Sankarasan has white complexion, blue garments, and even a plow. That's definitely Balaram's symptoms or the things that you where you recognize Balaram from, and also that he's been intoxicated, uh, and also in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna book, we have the story where Balaram visits Vrindavan after they left together with Krishna, and he's meeting with his own group of gopi girls, and Balaram is drinking Varuna drink of honey, made of honey, and then then one gorilla comes by and starts to disturb the gopis, and Balaram kills him, and then Balaram is calling Yamuna to come closer, but because Yamuna is seeing Balaram in such an intoxicated state, uh, she feels a little bit disgusted about Balaram and refuses Balaram's call. Then Balaram, by force, is dragging with his plow Yamuna to come closer. And then Yamuna surrenders. He understands that it's still Balaram, her lord and master. So he begs forgiveness. And in the seventh verse, it was described uh, how Sankarsan in this intoxicated state, his eyes are like mm, uh, flower flowers, and they are moving to and fro. But so, and also it was described how he has a white giant garland made of tulsi leaves, and uh, some bumblebees are flying around the tulsi garland. And in this way, uh, Anantadeva, or Lord Shankarsan, is enjoying his pastimes. So this is a very colorful, beautiful description of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, and and there are some other descriptions. Well, this description, of course, refers to Anantadev, Sankarsan, Balaram, and there is another description which describes Lord Krishna's beautiful features, and there's an interesting connection because in this verse it is said how Krishna also has a white gigantic garland. That's in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, 10:21:5. Parhapiram natavara vapukarnayo karnikaram viprad vasa kanaka kapicham vaijayantim chamalam randhran venur adhara Sudhaya Purayan Gopavrindair Vrindaranyam Swapadaramanam Pravishat Gita Kirti, wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue karnikara flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vaijayanti garland. Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the halls of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd boys sang his glories. So here Krishna is described as the greatest of dancers, and the moment where he was going to the forest of Vrindavan with his cowherd boyfriends. This description is also very beautiful, describing the beauty of the Lord and about his pastimes. And this particular verse about Krishna is recited in an occasion where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, they meet for the first time for their pastimes in Nandanacharya's house. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent forth his closest associates to find out there's a new person in Navadvip. You should go and find him out. But his associates came back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with empty hands. They said that they couldn't find anybody significant or new. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he took his associates with him, and then gradually, ultimately approached Nandanacharya's house, and there he met Lord Nityananda for the first time for his pastimes. Uh, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and Nityananda is Lord Balaram. And then there was a very exciting, very jubilant first meeting of Chaitanya and Nityananda. And there was Srivas Pandita in the group, and Srivas Pandita started to recite Srimad Bhagavatam, and he started to recite, especially to recite this particular verse about Krishna. So soon we actually, well, more than 3 weeks, we are going to have Lord Nityananda's appearance day, Nityananda Trayodashi. We are going to celebrate it on Sunday. That's the 13th of February, if I remember correctly. Yes, 13th of February on Sunday, we are going to celebrate Nityananda Trayodashi. So stay tuned, whoever are in Finland. So then there's verse 8, where the importance of a bona fide guru is emphasized. Prabhupada is bringing the idea that this description of Anantadev could be taken as imaginary, but but the Lord and His pastimes are revealed to those who are very sincerely practicing the path of devotional service under a bona fide guru in the bona fide disciplic succession. That's what Prabhupada is emphasizing here. And interestingly enough, to connect these verses, the guru, the spiritual master, is actually the representative of Lord Balaram. Balaram is the Adi Guru, and our spiritual masters are representing Lord Balaram. Just like in a connection with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda, it is said that we cannot get Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy without the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And classic exemplary story of this is deliverance of Jagai and Madai. Like Jagai and Madai, they were sons of a Brahmana, but they got very bad habits, and they became very mean due to bad association. I think their names were actually originally Jagadananda and Madhavananda, but because of their bad behavior, they called themselves like Jagai and Madai, just a very not very respectful form of their names. And Madai, Nityananda, Lord Nityananda tried to deliver them, give them Krishna consciousness, and these Jagai and Madai, they started to chase Lord Nityananda. I think Haridas Thakur was also with Lord Nityananda that time. But then Lord Nityananda tried to approach them again, and then Madai took a clay pot and hit Lord Nityananda on his head. And immediately at that point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard about this and then appeared on the scene and were attempting to kill Madai for this offense. But Lord Nityananda begged him, please forgive me, forgive him. And he pointed to Lord Chaitanya that in this incarnation you have appeared as a very merciful incarnation, so you have to forgive him and we'll give him mercy and we'll give him Krishna consciousness. And at that point, Madai was shocked, and Jagai and Madai, they actually changed their habits. They got the mercy of Lord Nityananda. So much so that they gave up their bad habits, their ill behavior, and even they tried to serve the Vaishnavas. They they built a bathing ghat along the Ganga River in Navadvip, and were always ready to serve the Vaishnavas who came to bathe there. And even today, we know where the Jagai and Madai Ghat. It's called Jagai Madai Ghat in Mayapur area. There are three kinds of uh, parikrama routes or routes for walking around Navadvip or Mayapur, and the shortest one is called the Panchakrosh Parikrama. The parikrama or the foot traveling path of 5 crosses. 5 crosses is like a 10 miles or 16 kilometers long, and that's the shortest parikrama route in Navadvip, uh, recognized by Lord Nityananda when he took Jiva Goswami around Navadvip. So Panchakrosh Parikrama is the shortest. Then there is Ashtakrosh Parikrama, and then there is Navadvip Mandala Parikrama, which is the longest one. So Jagai Madai God is on the way of this Panchakrosh Parikrama. So Lord Shankarasana's mercy is described also that if somebody is serious has a serious desire of being liberated from this material life, material world, then his appearing, Sankarasan is Lord appearing in the heart of such a devotee and dismissing, vanquishing all the obstacles from one's path. So we have 4 kinds of people who approach the Lord. Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita that those who suffer, those who are in need of money, and those who are curious, and those who are in search of actual knowledge. And the best of them are those who are coming to the stage of to the stage of accumulating real spiritual knowledge about the self, about the existence, about one's connection to the Supreme Lord, and ultimately how to liberate from oneself from the clutches of illusory energy, and ultimately develop love for Godhead and go back home, back to Godhead. So all these different categories, they can be elevated to that stage, but that doesn't always happen. Like it is told a story of one disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Uh, that he felt that he was in a need of money, so he moved in a temple and started his devotional life. And after some time, it happened that he got an inheritance. And after he got his inheritance, he left the temple and left one box behind him. And there was all his devotional items, like clothes and japa beads, uh, probably books, and everything devotional. And there was a note that I don't need this anymore. That's a bit of a sad example, but it may happen. But usually, or actually many times, we see that religious groups, they gather in themselves people who, so to say, didn't make it in the material world. Something was there. Uh, some obstacle came in their life experience that made them remain unsatisfied with material life. So maybe there's something from birth, maybe not so beautiful material body, or maybe not such a good intelligence, or some disappointment with the relationship. Many times we see that such persons, they come to Krishna consciousness, they approach God, mm, and that is good for them. So we can understand that these kind of persons, they uh, their bank account of good karma is diminishing, so they need to increase their bank account, and then they come in the realm of performing devotional service. um, but hopefully they understand something. What is the ultimate purpose of performing devotional service? Not only uh, to elevate one's material assets, but ultimately understand that how these material assets, they are temporary anyway, and they are just for me, Krishna gives some material assets because uh, he becomes a little bit more and more convinced that this person is about to use these material assets properly for the service of the Lord. But uh, if if a devotee leaves Krishna consciousness with this accumulated material assets, he's going to um, waste them, and then again, his bank account of good karma is diminishing. But hopefully, those devotees who come to Krishna consciousness ultimately understand that the ultimate goal is to uh, attain pure love of Godhead and then return back home to Krishna, and not stay in this material world, not getting illuminated by the glittering effect of material illusory energy. So Lord Sankarshan is said in this verse that he vanquishes the contamination of the modes of material nature. So we are contaminated by the three modes of material nature, especially Srila Prabhupada mentions here the mode of passion and mode of ignorance. Those are he calls the base qualities, the lower modes of material nature. And is also always encouraged for a devotee to develop or to uh, go to the higher mode, the mode of goodness, elevate oneself to the mode of goodness, and use that as a stepping stone to the transcendental platform. And therefore, it's good to use, good to live such a life that we can cultivate the mode of goodness. Especially Srila Prabhupada mentions rising very early and um, doing rounds, chanting one's rounds in a very uh, early hours of the day. And also, it is said that Lord Shankarsan in the heart, he cuts the hard knot in the heart. So there's a like you have a string and you put one knot and then you put another knot and another knot on top of it. So there's a and you uh, pull the strings both ways very tightly, and there's a very hard knot in the heart. Our desire for material enjoyment is so deep rooted that it takes some good effort to try to open that hard knot in the heart. And the hard knot here in the verse is famously called Hridaya Kranti. Hridaya means heart and Kranti means knot. And the same word is used in the basic verse of describing what is causing this hard knot in the heart. And that's in the beginning of the fifth canto. Lord Rishabhadev says in the fifth chapter, Pumsavstriya mituni bhavametam tayormitho hridaya kranti maho aho kriya kshetra sutapta vitar chanasya moho yam aham mameti. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this conception, which ties together the hearts of male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. And in this way, one increases life illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. So that's a basic principle which Srila Prabhupada also many times mentions how the material enjoyment culminates in sex life, the connection between male and female. But then we do have a nice process of getting out of this hard knot in the heart. And here is described Narada Muni comes by and he sings the glories of the Lord. In this verse, he sings the glories of Ananta in the assembly of his father, Lord Brahma. But we see many times there's a song about Narada Muni, how he sings the glories of Radhika Raman. And in the Hindi movies, he sings the glories of Narayana, Narayana. When Narada Muni comes by, he sings this this glory of the Supreme Lord in the form of Narayan. So we have a performance of Sankirtan, particularly meant for this day and age of Kali Yuga. Kalatadhari Kirtanam. The glories, singing the glories of Lord Hari is the proper method for self-realization in this particular day and age. And distributing transcendental literature, that also is called as Sankirtan. Okay, it's uh, the time is almost up, but there was also mentioned about this personality called Tumburu. I found out a little bit about the personality of Tumburu. Just like Narada Muni, originally he was a Gandharva, so this Tumburu was also a Gandharva who was singing very nicely. I was reading so many different things about Tumburu on the internet, but to keep it as authentic as possible, I'm sticking with those uh, which I could find from ISKCON books. Uh, because otherwise you never know where these stories are coming from. But Tomboro is, like I said, he was also a Gandharva, and there's a story in Ramayana where Lord Rama, Lakshman, and Sita they are traveling in the forest, and at one point there's a very big, huge, terrible-looking Rakshasa in front of them, and the Rakshasa is challenging Lord Rama that who are you? You are dressed like a sage, and but still you have a weapon in your hand. You are simply a cheater, and you have also brought your wife here in the forest. So, and so Viradha, the Rakshasa, took Sita and started running. But then, and then he turned after some time and started talking to Ramachandra again that you go back where you came from, otherwise I will kill you. If you go back, yeah, I won't kill you, but I'll take your wife and convert myself into human form and enjoy sporty pastimes with your wife. He's my wife. She's my wife now. So Ramachandra got very angry, and Ram and Lakshman started to chase this Rakshasa, and they started to shoot arrows. And for this, the Rakshasa had to release Sita, and he started to fight Ram and Lakshman instead. So he was so huge and he had very big hands, Virata. And so he grabbed Ram and Lakshman in his hands and put them in his shoulders and started running. But then Ramachandra took a sword and cut his arm. And Lakshman took his sword and cut his other arm. Uh, so somehow this Rakshasa lost his consciousness. And Ramachandra immediately told him that, okay, you dig a very a deep pit for this Rakshasa, so we are going to bury him here. And the Rakshasa actually, uh, when he was put in a pit, he began to talk that I was actually a Gandharva named Tumburu before, but because I was serving Kuvera, the treasurer of the heavenly planets, and I did one mistake. I didn't serve Kuvera properly. Therefore, he cursed me to become a Rakshasa, and I begged for his forgiveness. So he told me that when Ramachandra is coming to kill you, then you will be saved. So this was the time when Tumburu in the that cursed state was to be delivered by Lord Ramachandra. Hare Krishna. I think I can end here. Let's see if there are any questions or comments anywhere. Hare Krishna. No really questions. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you for patiently hearing for the Bhagavatam class. Jai Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindhubhya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.